everyone! Hi everyone, welcome to our channel and our tiny kitchen. Today we're going to be making Palmiers, which is a French puff pastry dessert. It's super easy. I'm not going to be making my own puff pastry today. I really don't have the energy for it. I'm just trying to make a quick snack for tomorrow and for work. We'll be talking about nostalgia in ice hockey, mostly because I was watching the Boston Bruins game this morning and I realized how much they were using nostalgia in their advertising and in their marketing, and so I figured it would be a good topic. So let's get started. It's super easy. It's about 50 grams of sugar and puff pastry, depending on how many you want to do. I just need enough for one person for a day. So let's get started with this, and most importantly, with our topic, which is nostalgia in sports. How does it impact, why does it impact people, and why does it work is kind of what I want to be looking at. First, we're looking at what is the emotional leverage of this kind of marketing. So nostalgia, one of the first things in play with nostalgia is an emotional attachment or an emotional play. So one of the first things it does is that it will trigger emotional loyalty, where people feel like that brands with a very strong history are a little stronger emotionally for purchasers. For example, we'll tap into two things: the nostalgia of better times and the nostalgia of childhood. And we'll use a lot of this nostalgia of how fun it was to play hockey when you're a kid. You see that in a lot of ads around the NHL where they use children's hockey because a lot of fans would have played hockey at some point in their life or have family members that played hockey at some point in their life, and that's why they use that specific trigger so much. But that is one of the biggest thing, is it triggers memories of childhood. And so you have a lot of people who would have played hockey at some point in their life now wanting to watch it again because it reminds them of how happy they were at that point. So the second one I mentioned is nostalgia of a better time, a glory time. And you see that a lot with, for example, the Boston Bruins. In their marketing, they use a lot 2011 Stanley Cup when they won, because obviously the champions is, first of all, something a lot of people will have witnessed because 2011 is quite recent. But it's also a huge, exciting moment for fans and players and families and all of that, because it's such an emotional event. And so the form of nostalgia that they use in that case is kind of like the glory days and how amazing it was when they were winning Stanley Cup. They remind people of how good the team is or can be when it was in glory days. And so they use that kind of marketing, legendary players. So for the, is it Penguins? And Oilers. The Oilers use that a lot, legendary players. The Bruins use it. Most teams use it because most of them have had one really good player at one point, and so they use that a lot. And that is nostalgia marketing, and they're using that kind of glory days, so you say, hey, look, we can still do this. We did it, we can still do it. The Maple Leafs will remind people a lot of how that they technically won the most Stanley Cups, even though the last one was something like 60 years ago. They will remind a lot of people that statistically they are the team with the most Stanley Cups. So that is something that is quite common in sports in general. I watch hockey, so I've seen it mostly in hockey. But that is kind of a big thing, is how teams use this nostalgia to sell products and they sell a dream to their fans. That's basically what it is. They're selling a dream to their fans. The other really important thing of this is that it tends to bridge generations. Let's go with the Oilers with Gretzky. He still attends games, and so the Oilers can still use his image a lot. They can still show his goals, they can still show his stats, they can still use his name. And then he shows up to a game, and of course, this is going to go so well with fans. And this is just going to basically bridge the gap between the generation that actually watched him play and the generation today watching the Oilers. To be fair, in the last 2 years, the Oilers did really great, and so they don't need to rely as much on this kind of like dream of an amazing past, because they've made the finals twice already in the last 2 years. Currently have basically future legends. They'll be able to update kind of their storytelling about that in the next few years, and it's really interesting how they can bridge, well, the people who were young who watched him play at the time. Because, I mean, he retired in what, 99, 98, 97? So you're, okay, no, that's 30 years ago. I just realized how old I am. Shit. And he still comes to a game, and a lot of people who watched him play are now parents bringing their kids to hockey games. By doing that, and then him coming to the games, and the Oilers still using his image, and the shots, and continue comparing every player that comes up to him. And of course, he was the best, so that makes sense. But the Oilers doing it specifically is not like the other teams doing it. The other teams doing it is like very much a stat thing. Look, our player is as good as or is better than. When the Oilers do it, they do it in this kind of nostalgia way of, look at the amazing player we had. Look at how great we were, is kind of the image they give. And again, they're doing great, right? Or they were doing great at the Stanley Cup last year. They've made the final 2 years in a row, which is absolutely incredible. So to be fair, they're still doing really good, so they don't necessarily need this kind of marketing, but it's also still very smart marketing despite them not really needing it right now. There's 2 more things that play in the emotional aspect of nostalgia and this kind of marketing. So one of those things is the retro and history. So those 2 things give a lot of credibility to people and to things and to brands and to a whole bunch of things. You'll probably have noticed that when you go to a restaurant, when you go to a shop, when you go to a whole bunch of those, it'll be written name of the shop since 1980, 1990, and every so often you'll see a since 2010. But you'll see that a lot on storefront fronts and all of that. And it's very simple. It's because it gives credibility and it gives a sense of history. And hockey is not an exception. They know the effect that has on customers, the effect of trust. So trust is an extremely important factor when trying to make sales or trying to make money in general for brands. And as much as we love teams and we tend to forget they are brands, every hockey team is a brand. For them, it's extremely important to play by the same rules as most other brands, which is build trust, build history, build emotion, build loyalty. And those are all very important things for any brand, not only sport. Business school tells you this all the time. They don't really tell you how to do it. Caelia, 괜찮아?
Hello, puppy. Hello, puppy. You're so cute. 너무 귀여워. 세리야 너무 귀여워. 응? 너무 귀여워. 왜? 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 I love you. I love you, puppy.
I forgot what I was saying because I got distracted by my dog. Now the next thing is how do you spot the nostalgia marketing and brands using it? If you don't necessarily know that brand, how do you know? Well, I've mentioned already the since time. You'll see it by very retro design or them reminding you that they're coming back to an old design. That is something we saw at the beginning of this season with the Boston Bruins and their jerseys, where they were like, we are bringing back this logo, we're bringing back this. That is 100% the nostalgia marketing. They figured that they did not have a very good season last season, and so what's the best thing they can do? Well, honestly, try to bring back the past. Try to bring back when the Boston Bruins were the best, aka 2011. And we're back to the year they won the Stanley Cup. And because of that, that's the kind of logo they brought back. That's the logo they brought back. That's the design they brought back. And that's what they're going to bring back like the next one they win. So this is what they do. And basically, that's the main way you will see it as a marketing strategy, is by bringing back something that existed at some point in the brand. So it can be a logo, it can be a jersey, it can be a name, it can be a color, it can be a whole bunch of different things that were part of the image of that brand. They kind of want, and that's kind of the whole idea behind this bring back the old logo, is let's show the fans, let's show the customers, because as much as people are fans, and in this industry, fans are both fans and customers, they see the fans as customers rather than as fans. And so they look at it and say, okay, how do we get these customers to not let us go, to not drop us, to not be mad at us? Well, we're going to remind them how great we were. And so that's kind of why they brought back the old logo, old jerseys, and all of that. And you see it in a lot of teams, especially the original 6. They have a lot of that marketing. They do a lot of those tactics in the original 6 just because, well, they're the OGs and they like to remind everyone that they are. So you see that a lot in those teams specifically. One of the other ways you'll see the nostalgia marketing play is with anniversary campaigns. So this can be either a short event, a one-day event on the day something was built, and you'll see that online. So a YouTube channel was created, you'll see almost every single YouTuber do a 1-year anniversary, 2-year anniversary, 3-year anniversary of their channel. That is technically nostalgia marketing.
Caelia, 앉아. Caelia, 앉아. 손. 앉아. 손. Yes, good girl. 잘했어.
And so in the NHL, we've seen recently there's multiple teams that have gone through their centennials. The original 6. The original 6 have been going through their centennial years recently. And so we're seeing a lot of centennial jersey themes, and they go on for the entire season, basically. So those events will typically go through the entire season. Last year, the Korean team that I follow, I think it was 30 years that they had. Last year was their 30th anniversary, so they had, or 30th season, and so they had jerseys with the number 30 on top. I have to admit, I really didn't like the logo design for the 30-year anniversary thing. The logo is just weird. The 30-year logo was just all strange. I'll see if I can find it and put it on screen. Their logo basically is very modern, which means it doesn't scream 30 years. It doesn't really, it's a huge 30. Like literally the design is one huge number 30 with the current colors. But considering they changed colors, I think for the nostalgia marketing, it would have made a lot more sense to use those original colors in that 30-year design to kind of really recall the history of the team and all of that. I think would have been probably a much better play on their nostalgia. The Bruins last year had their 2 years ago, recently-ish, had their centennial, and they had a very nice logo that didn't look modern. I think that was a very good design for a centennial, just because it doesn't look too modern, and so it kind of tells you, yeah, this team is old. Look how old this team is. And I think that's a much smarter design when you're going to play on nostalgia for people. And on a team as recent, like 30 years is quite recent, I think they could have played the nostalgia better on that 30 year. Or they could have done it a little bit more nostalgic instead of just going modern and then 30. The other marketing strategy you see is on social media. And on social media, you'll see a lot of then and now marketing strategy, or before and after kind of marketing strategy. Do a lot of montage from old player, new player, old scores, new scores. And so we could see that a lot with the 895 goals of Ovechkin after he beat that record that Gretzky had been holding for so long. You see there's a whole bunch of videos showing every single goal Ovechkin has put in. that's nostalgia marketing. It doesn't necessarily look like it, or you don't necessarily assign it with nostalgia marketing as much, but it 100% is, because it's that same montage of when he joined the NHL all the way to today, Gretzky's record. One of the really smart things we also see marketing teams do, and this is when they want engagement more than actual sales. The last two, actually, the montage and the one I'm going to talk about, are more about engagement than trying to make sales. So the logo designs, the making stuff retro, that's a lot more about making sales. The montage and the next one are more about fan engagement. And that's more for social media growth and more for awareness kind of purposes. And everything is absolutely necessary in marketing. You have to do some for sales and some for awareness. And so for the engagement, the next type of marketing you'll find that's more for engagement is asking fans to post about their first memories or post any kind of memories on social media. And that is more engagement, but also it's pushing the fan's emotional aspect a little bit further. The fan that has to remember their first game or has to put themselves in that nostalgia mindset is a little bit more susceptible to then purchase anything that is from our previous points on nostalgia. So this is really important. But a lot of teams will do that. A lot of social media brands will do that. Post about your first post about your first NHL game. Post about coming to your first game. What was your first experience with hockey? You'll see that a lot. And that is completely normal. That is 100% nostalgia marketing. Engagement targeted nostalgia marketing for social. And the final kind of execution you can see for this nostalgia marketing is through collaboration with legends, with past players, with past team owners, past team coaches. All of that is another thing. So you'll see it a lot with Gretzky. When Gretzky is on any kind of television show, that's what it is. So basically any hockey program that takes an old player, that typically is a legend, or the player that either had a really big personality, the player that had a lot of goals, the player that participated on the team, the one that had the most fights, a player that basically had something very memorable about them. And they include that player in shows, in talk shows, in podcasts, all of that, nostalgia marketing. Now, what do the brands get from it? Because we've talked about what is the lever, so the emotional aspect, the leverage that it creates on customers or fans. We've talked about how they do it, physically what they do as nostalgia marketing. But now, how do brands, teams in this case, how do the NHL teams benefit from the nostalgia marketing? The way they benefit most from it is obviously money, sales. Anything that has to do with marketing is always money. The goal of marketing is make money. Get off. Wait, you want to play? I'm trying to cook and talk. I can't play. I can't play right now. I'll play with you right after, okay? I'll play with you right after. Baby? It's okay? I'll play with you after? Good girl. And there she is. And there she is. So, the second one that I mentioned, that was more about the engagement, the trying to get engagement. That is for brand storytelling. So there's two parts in marketing. There's obviously the whole sales, advertisement, etc., but there's also branding as part of marketing. And so they'll use that nostalgia as part of branding. I'm sorry. She's in the mood to play. She has the zoomies, and she is not happy that I'm not paying all my attention to her. Wait. The idea is to create basically your brand's legend, and what is your brand's story? So how was it created? Where does it come from? All of that is branding. And then the engagement, which is bringing people in, we already talked about. I'm not going to go about it again. Goal is basically sales, branding, engagement, and then eventually long-term loyalty. So basically, by using all the ones we said in the beginning, especially the storytelling and the engagement, those create loyalty with customers and, in this case, fans. So basically brands, that's their entire goal, is go and create loyalty. There's a very simple reason why brands want to create loyalty. And that's the case for any hockey team. This is the case for any brand. Why hockey teams want to create loyalty is because having repurchase customers, coming back customers, is a lot cheaper than trying to acquire new customers. So basically, there's a very simple rule that acquiring new customers for any kind of company and any kind of brand and any kind of team is extremely expensive in terms of advertising budget and in terms of marketing in general. Whereas making sure that your existing customers are loyal and continue returning is actually really cheap in terms of advertisement budget and marketing budget. And so teams and brands and companies will typically try to privilege that returning customer. So they will allocate part of their budget specifically for returning customers and part of their budget for acquiring new customers. In Korea, I mentioned, is about 30 years old. It's in a tiny ice rink. It doesn't sell out every game. There's not that many seats, but they also need to try and grow in Korea. And so if they were trying to grow the sport in Korea, they would have to basically push their budget to acquire new customers. Currently, they're basically focused on just creating loyalty with their customers, and then they have a social media page that tries to grow a little bit of their existing customers. But they don't have, or at least that's what I'm seeing it from the outside, and I'm looking at it with the marketing eyes. I don't see any event or any type of advertising that is targeted towards acquiring new customers. They're trying to build a new customer base, so I'm looking at it from the outside, and to me they have zero creating new customer strategy in there. There's very little customer acquiring strategy going on and promotion going on. So I'm not 100% sure what they're doing. I'm not inside of the company. I would really like seeing what they're thinking and going to their meetings and try to figure that out, because looking at it from the outside, everything they're posting, every event they're participating into is about maintaining a customer base, maintaining your current customer base, and building loyalty with that customer base. I'm not seeing anything that is specifically acquiring new customers targeted. So that is kind of a case study. I'm trying to think. NHL are mostly focused on retaining customer base. They don't really need to do anything in terms of building a new customer base now. They're large enough. They don't really need to do that. Korea does need to do that, honestly. They need to push a little bit more on acquiring customers rather than just relying on loyalty. Just because it is such a small sport here, that's 100% the strategy they should be having is money! But that's the whole thing with the NHL. They don't necessarily have to do that. So we don't really have an example of the NHL or the NHL itself trying to spend money in acquiring customers. What we do have is the ads in between periods at the NHL. So when you're watching the NHL on TV, you'll notice they have Liberty, I think it's insurance. I think Liberty is insurance. Next week video is about betting apps, and I'm not a fan of betting apps on national TV. I'm fine with it on podcasts. I'm fine with it on very targeted media. NHL is not very targeted, so I'm very much against this. You will see my entire video on it next week. Basically, these betting apps, you'll see it with cars, you'll see it, I think Toyota is one. There's a whole bunch of them. You'll see those in the periods. And when you watch, oh, my favorite one. Oh, I love this one. I want to make a fun video more on these, like my favorite ads. But the no goal one, no goal. Financially, no goal. Savings, no goal. I love that one. That's my favorite ad. Sorry. It's brilliant. Brilliant. I love it. I could do a whole breakdown on that ad. It's amazing. It's so freaking smart. Anyway, so all of these ads are basically, that's customer acquiring budget. That is not retainment budget. That is 100%. Ooh, they're pretty successful. Yay! Ooh, they're hot too. Oh yeah, all those ads in the middle of a game, those are customer acquiring ads. So they're a little bit different than the loyalty building ones. So now, with my very cute cup of snacks and my super adorable puppy, I have to ask you the one question. What is your most nostalgic hockey moment? What is the one nostalgic ads that you've seen that you like the most? Or what is the team nostalgic thing that they've done that you enjoy the most? Let me know in the comments. Aww. And yeah, like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you soon. Bye!